This video is to demonstrate working Tunisian Simple Stitch. The sample in front of you now is an example of basic Tunisian Simple Stitch. So Tunisian crochet starts with a crochet chain, and you make the number of chains that you need, the number of stitches you'll want. So I've done 10 chains. Most Tunisian crochet will start the same way, where you make your chains and then you need to work a foundation row. There are a number of ways of working the foundation row, but the method that probably gives you the neatest edge is to now work through the back bumps, so you then get a chain along the bottom edge. I've already got a loop on my hook, so I'm going to miss the first stitch. I'm going to work into the second bump and pull a loop through. The next bump and pull a loop through. All the way down to the end of my chains. So I will have the same number of loops on my hook as the number of chains I worked to start with. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, and then the last one in the last chain. So that's what's called the forward pass of the foundation row. In Tunisian crochet you always have the same side, or nearly always have the same side of the crochet facing you, and you work a forward row, which usually involves picking up loops onto the hook, and then a return row or return pass where you take the loops off the hook. So I'm now going to work a standard return pass. So we start with yarn over hook and chain 1 into that first stitch, and now for the rest of the loops we're going to do yarn over hook and pull through 2 loops. Until we get back to only 1 loop on the hook. So I'm now completed my foundation row, and at this point it hasn't been decided what stitch this row is. The stitch that the row is defined by how the next row is worked. This is simple stitch, so I'm now going to work a row of simple stitch. So I start with a loop on the hook, so we miss the first vertical bar, and we're going to be working through these vertical bars, which were the loops from the row below. So I'm going to put my hook through the vertical bar from right to left and pull a new loop through. So I'm just going under the front vertical bar and pull a loop through for each stitch. Until we get to the end, and then at the end here we have to work under both sides of the end chain. So you have to find the end chain and go through both legs and pull a new loop up. So that is the forward pass for simple stitch, and now we just do the standard return pass, which is round the hook and pull through one chain, and then round and pull through two, pull through two, pull through two, all the way back to the beginning. And we just repeat that. So again, we miss the first vertical bar because we've already got that loop there, and pull up one loop for each stitch going through the front of the vertical bar, and when we get to the end you need to be able to identify. So at the moment it's not necessarily that clear, but the chain is this bit here, so I need to go, that's the front of the chain, and then make sure I get the back leg of the chain as well. So this gives you the neatest edge because you then get a chain on this edge which matches the chain on the other edge. And then again, yarn and pull through one, and then pull through two back to the beginning again. So some of the traits of Tunisian crochet which you might want to bear in mind is that this right hand edge tends to be a bit looser than the left hand edge, so it can be helpful to, once you've picked up your first strand, pull the yarn a bit tight to try and keep this end loop reasonably firm. Again, I'm picking up one stitch for each, one loop for each stitch going forward. And then coming up to the last stitch. So I need to identify the chain, so I pick up both sides of my chain, and at this end, again, to try and help keep the edges balanced, I find it useful to pull down on this end loop as I do my chain one, to try and make sure that I don't tighten this bit here, and then work the standard yarn over, pull through two back to the other end. Tunisian crochet is usually worked with a hook that is a larger size than you would use for standard crochet for that yarn, and it does quite often have this problem of curl, which usually can be reduced with blocking. So I'll just do one more row. So again, I've already got a stitch on the hook, so I'm going to go through the next vertical bar, pull a loop through, and I tug it a little bit tighter just to make sure these ends, this end stays firm while I work across to the other end of the row. I'm just coming up to the last stitch of the row, and again I want to make sure I get both sides of the end loop, pull it through, and as I work the return pass, if I pull down under the stitch so that I don't make the end stitch too tight, and then do the return pass, back to the other end. Oops, I did 2 stitches there, so you just make sure you don't ever pull through 3 rather than just 2. So I'll just bring the sample back over here, and you can clearly see these are the vertical bars that we're working through, and we have a chain edge at that edge and at this edge. So that gives you Tunisian Simple Stitch.